If I had to sum up today's entire video in a single word, it would be polarizing. I mean, even the subject of today's video is polarizing enough. When it comes to the rapper Ice Spice, everyone either seems to love her or wonder how in the world she's managed to maintain relevance for this long. There's also a third equally valid people who, even if their life depended on it, they couldn't tell you whether Ice Spice was a new member of the Spice Girls or a Starbucks drink. But today it looks like Miss Ice is in a bit of hot water. Sorry, because her best friend has just alleged that behind the memes and the music, Ice Spice is secretly a mean girl and a bad person. But based off of this friend's story, not everyone is coming to the same conclusion, and so the internet's a bit split. But first, welcome. My name is D'Angelo, and I am your professor of temporal orthodontics, which is a very real degree that I definitely do have. Or maybe this is just me broadcasting myself talking in my room like YouTube used to be. And in today's video, we are going to recap the Ice Spice versus Cleo Trappa TikTok saga, in which Cleo uploaded a 52-minute TikTok saying Ice Spice was a bad friend, in which Ice Spice responded saying that actually Cleo Trappa was being entitled the whole time, and in which everybody who is neither of these people has a very strong opinion on what actually went down, including, hopefully, us. Sometimes the most truly insignificant of situations raise the most interesting questions. And make no mistake, this whole situation is nothing if not insignificant. Like, I don't think this matters in the slightest, but I can see why people are so interested in it, because this whole thing went down on a concert tour, so it kind of raises questions about what happens when you blur the line between friendship and work. Spoiler alert, it's nothing good. But yeah, ultimately the thought that either of these people thought this needed to be public is wild to me, but nevertheless, I ate it up. So who, you may ask, are the people in question? Ice Spice is a rapper whose most notable work would be her contributions to the soundtrack for the movie Barbie. Beyond that, she's kind of known for her Little Orphan Annie meets Bratz doll aesthetic, and she's maintained her relevance thus far through a mix of Y2K nostalgia and ridiculous yet mostly harmless memes. From her solo tracks like Deli to her viral features on tracks like Boy's a Liar Part 2 from Pink Pantheress, Ice Spice has definitely been having a moment for a couple of years now, which I think has surprised many people, due to the usually lightning fast fall off of people who go viral because of memes. Cleo Trappa is also a rapper, and I would say Cleo has had a fairly similar trajectory in that some people know her for her memes, stemming from her big personality which lends itself to a lot of comedic reaction videos, a personality which you're going to see quite shortly, and she's also known for her music, which while not quite as popular as Ice Spice is still very fun. It's safe to say they occupy fairly similar niches in the internet community and in the world of music. And so with them also being friends, it only made sense that Ice Spice asked if Cleo Trappa would join her on her tour. Also, can I just take a moment to interject that Cleo Trappa is an amazing name? I want to make it clear from the start, I don't really have beef with either of these people. They most likely don't know of my existence, which is fine with me because a short time ago, I didn't know of theirs. So whereas I feel like a lot of the opinions I'm seeing are based off of some sort of Ice or Cleo allegiance, I'm mostly just here for the vibes, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, some people are following this very closely to the point where they initially noticed that Cleo Trappa apparently unfollowed her best friend Ice Spice on Instagram. This is actually why I don't follow anyone on Instagram. I mean, partially because I always forget this app exists, but also because there's just no room for speculation. Can't unfollow anyone if you were never following anyone to begin with. And also, only I matter. There's literally no point in following anyone else on this app. But some fans seem to think that Cleo had no reason to follow Ice Spice anymore because she unfollowed her immediately after the tour ended. According to this tweet, at least. She honored her contractual obligations then dipped. I have to respect it. Nah, for real, she was about that bag and nothing else. Personally, I've always seen the idea that if you unfollow someone on social media, you have stopped being their friend to be really silly. I have people in my life who are really dear to my heart, but also I wouldn't want to see their Instagram content if my life depended on it. And if anything, it makes me wish that Instagram had a way of following someone and then never seeing any of their posts ever again. But anyways, it turns out that in this case, it actually was a sign of bad blood because Cleo Trappa herself joined in on the discourse and said, "Y'all thinking I got paid is hilarious. I was played played, betrayed, and unpaid. I can't lie, the rhyme scheme is rhyme scheming. I never had a problem with not being paid, by the way. I knew. I just want everyone to stop thinking I was paid because I wasn't. So how then was Cleo betrayed and played exactly? Well, she proceeded to lay out all of the details in a 6-part TikTok series whose total runtime is nearly an hour. I'm not gonna lie, this trend of TikTok series based on the end of people's relationships and friendships, in which the TikToks in question have runtimes that are rivaling, if not outperforming movies, really just makes me feel old, I think. Like, I remember the days when your friendship would end and then that's it. I don't think anybody was turning this into long-form content on the Clock app, but nevertheless, the Hell Apart breakup TikTok series is in, and thus it was the perfect format for Cleo to air her grievances about the way Ice Spice treated her on the tour. And seeing as she racked up a collective 20 million views across these TikToks, it's safe to say a lot of people had a lot of opinions about this. So let's see what she had to say. 52 minutes is a lot, but nevertheless, I will go through the whole thing and point out the parts that are relevant to this discussion so you can see how you feel about it.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Cleo. Y'all know me.
I don't, actually, but I am looking forward to it.
This video isn't to bash anyone. This is for me to speak on my experience and what I went through. I want y'all to literally take this situation that I'm about to break down to y'all and understand that no matter what the opportunity is, nobody should make you feel less than because they gave you an opportunity.
Regardless of how this winds up playing out, I do think that that is very strong messaging. I actually wish this was something more people would talk about or normalize, but instead everyone is just shamed for appearing ungrateful. And so there are some people in this world who will just use that to their advantage and do nice things for you only so that they can have some sort of advantage over you. When in reality, nice things should really just be done because you want to be nice and not because you want something back. Now, is Ice Spice one of these manipulative people? I guess we'll see in the story.
I'm just gonna tell the story because you guys deserve to know why we're not friends. Y'all do deserve to know who y'all are so obsessed with. Y'all love her so much. Y'all deserve to know who that girl is as an actual human being.
I will say this. The main reason I usually don't react to these extremely long, one-sided TikTok videos is because they don't in fact show you who someone is as a person. The person making the TikTok generally wants everyone to agree that the person they're talking about is not great, which is obviously going to color and influence the things they choose to share and the way they choose to frame them. So I view it as less of a secret insight into the person they're talking about and more as an exploration of the TikToker's personal feelings or experience with this person, which is equally valuable, but definitely not, I guess, evidence of somebody being a horrible person. If you take everything at face value in these stories, I think the other person always seems like a bad person, and probably most people can agree there. But honestly, people be lying on the internet. Though in this case, Ice Spice herself has seemed to confirm much of what's being said. So keep that in mind, because we're going to get into her response and everything she had to say afterwards.
So the ending of July, I get a call from Ice very early in the morning. Cleo, come on tour with me. I miss you.
So Cleo explains that while she was excited that Ice Spice was going to bring her out on stage, she couldn't help but find the timing of it suspicious since they had been having a bit of a friend fallout right up until that point. And it made Cleo think that this was Ice Spice trying to perhaps make up for it.
I made a flyer announcing that I was going to be coming on tour with her. It did not even get reposted. It didn't even get a comment or like, and she was tagged in it. The bill, it didn't even have my name on it. Like, just about nobody knew I was coming on tour. It was like a special guest. Very calculated, you know?
That is weird. I really find that strange. Obviously, the idea of a special surprise guest is one thing, and that's something that can get audiences really excited. But in this case, with Ice Spice being the much bigger artist, it's fairly abnormal that she would not promote the smaller artists who are, I guess, supporting her tour, especially when opening for larger artists and being supporting acts in that way is a huge part of the way some smaller artists have launched themselves into stardom. So I see why this felt a little bit calculated. I do.
It was just given like, oh, let's let Cleo eat, but we gonna give her crumbs. Like, we gonna shine light on her, but let's dim it. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what she's saying. I really, really do.
And before I came on tour, I asked her What were the things that I was going to have to pay for? Because this is so last minute. It's July 30 something and we going on tour August 1st. Like, girl, literally one day. So I'm just like, what do I have to pay for? Nothing. You're going to be with me. You're good. You're going to be with me. So I was like, okay, everything is handled. I'm just going to go.
1 day notice is crazy. And I think this is the part of the story where I would have been like, wow, this is an awesome opportunity, but no. I'm not saying that's what Cleo should have done. I'm just saying that's what I would have done. I am not a fan of short notice for things that people could easily have alerted me of beforehand. Because if you give me notice, I'll show up. I will context switch into ball out mode and we can just have fun all day. But it takes a while, I think, for me to do the context shift. My default state is just couch. Home, bed, sleep. I just love being at home. You know, I don't feel bad about it. I used to when I was younger, but I'm just a stan of hanging out by myself, basically. So if you are giving me 24 hours to make a decision, I'm probably going to choose me. I'm not going to lie.
I wasn't allowed to bring anybody. She said if I brought anybody, I was going to have to pay for their hotel and transportation. I'm just like, girl, I didn't even have time to prepare for this. I have things to pay for myself as an independent artist.
All right. Now we're getting into some tricky territory here. So I think the way she framed it initially, which is that she wasn't allowed to bring anyone with her, would be crazy if that was the case. But it sounds more like she was allowed to bring whoever, but she would have to cover the cost, which isn't the same thing, but does raise some questions. In my experience, being flown out to do certain things, VidCon or other collaborations I've been a part of, I feel like a +1 is pretty standard. I don't really think it's entitlement to expect at least one other person to be covered by somebody who is already covering your entire trip. Mostly just because you're probably going to need some form of help when you are in a different city doing something as hectic as, in this case, trying to tour. But I guess it sounds like Ice Spice was envisioning Cleo as part of Ice's tour, as opposed to seeing her as her own artist with her own touring needs. Very interesting thus far.
Her security, who brings all her bags, she has like 10 bags, he brought my bag. I put my bag next to her 10 bags. I'm thinking everything is gonna be moved, but like back into the trunk. I turned around and my bag is still there. All her bags was gone. I'm just like, why would somebody just leave my bag? I asked the security, I'm like, can you take my bag? He said no. I'm like, can I pay somebody to bring my bags down? Because I didn't want to bring the bags down. Why would I want to bring the bags down? I'm just a girl.
Okay, this one's tricky. So I think Cleo's attitude towards not carrying her own bag is kind of interesting to me. I feel like I would have just carried it at the point where they didn't, and I'm just a girl too. However, the fact that security brought her bags there and then refused to bring them back is genuinely ridiculous. Like, what possible reasoning could you have for doing that, I guess?
So I'm like, let me bring the bags. I'm tight though. I'm not used to this stuff. I'm just supposed to be performing. I feel like she could have simply said to the security, like, take Cleo's bag. But I got a sense that she just wanted me to struggle.
People online were very, very split about the bag discourse. The way I see it is literally just a bag. I don't think it proves that either Cleo or Ice Spice is a terrible human being.
The fans are screaming, Cleo, can we get a picture? Cleo, can we get a picture? As I'm struggling with a bag, and it's like very embarrassing.
Like, to be honest, you were just carrying a bag. I get it, but I guess I don't get it. I'm not famous or popular or music-y enough. It's a bag. I feel like if I saw an artist carrying a bag, I wouldn't think anything of it at all, I guess. And the implication that you should not have had to do so because you have fans it's interesting.
He's getting paid to work for you. He got paid to work for you. He's moving anything you tell him to move. So I'm like, girl, I was carrying them bags out. Like, the fans was all in my face. She started making it seem like she understand, like, oh yeah, that's crazy, da-da-da. But then she goes back to being weird and she's just like, he can't leave my side. Like, he can't leave me.
What does she mean by that? That's like a deeply strange response from Ice Spice in that case. She makes it sound like Ice Spice has this man under some sort of magical contract. If the guy who carries her bags gets more than 20 feet away from her, he's just gonna turn into a frog or something.
This is supposed to be my friend, but gradually I start seeing that she wasn't really my friend. And that was like the the beginning of it.
Now, as you can see, things are getting weird because we've started conflating things like friendship with very transactional things like getting your employees to do or not do work for your friends. And mixing friendship and business is genuinely always a recipe for disaster. The business or the friendship is going to suffer, and it's usually both.
They would like show me bathrooms and little corners that I can get ready in, and I'm just like, what? But need I remind you, every time there was a special guest or somebody that Ice wanted to bring out, they was always accommodated.
Once again, this is weird. If Ice Spice told Cleo that, hey, you're gonna be with me the whole time and don't worry about covering anything, but her team couldn't bother to cough up so much as a spot in Ice Spice's dressing room, it really does make me question why Ice Spice invited Cleo if she wasn't going to accommodate her in a very normal way, especially compared to the other people who were invited on this tour. It sounds like Ice too was viewing it as just, oh, we're friends, come be my friend on the tour, but she couldn't separate it as also needing to accommodate Cleo as an artist. Very, very strange behavior. But Cleo says that she knows the reason that Ice Spice was being so weird about all of this.
That's because she was tight ever since the Philly show when I said something about the luggage. That is why everything was weird.
Very interesting. So believe it or not, this next section also involves a bag.
The hour goes by. I like go downstairs. I walk past the room. I see my bag, Telfar bag, outside of her door. And I'm just like, wait, why would they kick this little bag out? Like, this little bag was on the side of the couch. Like, why would it need to be kicked out the room? A few days later, my card was used. $700 and something was used at one of those designer retail websites like Essence or something.
Okay, that definitely makes it sound like Ice Spice was retaliating over the luggage, because why in the world did you just put your friend's bag in the hallway? Of course, that's going to result in something being stolen. There's, as far as I'm concerned, no real valid explanation for why that would make sense. I would have been like, hey, come get your bag. If that person did not come get their bag, I'd be like, hey, I have your bag and will continue to hold on to it until I see you again. But no, this is just the strangest possible response in this scenario.
She goes, in the elevator, you not gonna get your own room? I was like, what? I didn't know I was getting my own room. Like, girl, you could have texted me that. Cleo, make sure you get your own room. This is the hotel we staying at. I could have had the room booked already before we got here, boo.
From Cleo's account, it either sounds like Ice Spice is just completely out of touch with how to invite someone on tour and the things that you would need to accommodate, which, by the way, Ice would have managers that could totally do this for her easily. Or at worst, she is actively trying to make this an annoying bad trip for Cleo. And from the way that Cleo's describing things, it's definitely starting to sound like the latter. She also explains issues with the food budget. Apparently, there was no budget for Cleo, and she couldn't so much as ask for a chicken salad.
Why is your production saying that I'm not a part of the budget for a chicken salad? Chicken salad? Y'all could have bought that chicken salad and literally got the money from my manager or me. But y'all wanted to show me so bad that I can't get nothing.
And so it doesn't even sound like she was demanding that they pay for her, but only that they include her when they do these things like get everybody food, carry everyone's bags, get everyone situated in the dressing room. Like, again, there's no reason not to do these things. It's not hard to do these things. And I understand why Cleo assumed these things would be done beforehand. So being proactive, it sounds like Cleotrapa did try to get an assistant out there, which her label provided. However, this assistant wasn't allowed to ride on the bus, so they only wound up being there for one tour stop, and that didn't pan out. And then next, fast forward a couple tour stops, and people are eating without her again. So next, Cleo describes issues with the tour bus, which she describes in a very interesting manner.
So for you guys that don't know how a tour bus looks, it looks like a slave ship. Very similar to a slave ship. 3 bunks stacked up on top of each other very tightly.
I'm sorry, but that description is crazy. Like, what do you mean by that? But anyway, she shares another anecdote where everyone was on the tour bus for 5 hours because they thought they were going to leave, only to find out that Ice Spice didn't feel like leaving yet, which, while obviously you are in a better position than a slave ship, hanging out in an uncomfortable bus for 5 hours is wild, especially when it's just at the whim of somebody else.
She is very dark and very soulless. Anytime I hung out with her, it was something very small, a small gathering, a small event, video shoots, you know what I'm saying? It never was chilling in the crib. That's why I kind of got annoyed when a lot of people thought he was like, oh. It wasn't like, oh, but it was like, We were still cool. Like, that was still my girl, bro. Her energy, I got to witness this very firsthand. Every day, 24/7. She was dark. She just, oh my God, like, it's even scary to talk about. Like, bro, that girl, she needs to be saved.
Okay, so this is kind of funny because on the one hand, Cleo's like, I was annoyed that people thought we were friends. But then on the other, she keeps emphasizing how they were friends, which is why she's upset at being treated this way. But then she's like, even though we were friends, actually, Ice Spice had this really dark, messed up energy. And so it's kind of like, were you her friend if you're describing her as somebody without a soul and also admitting that you weren't that close? I understand what she's saying, which is that this tour was the most time they had ever spent together. And so she saw a new side of Ice Spice, which she was interpreting as, I guess, super dark or messed up or whatever. But it does leave me kind of wondering what exactly Cleo wanted out of this. To hang out with friends, which you can't really do for 24 hours of the day when you are there to work, or to work, which would result in a lot of times when you can't hang out as friends. I'm not blaming Cleo for any of Ice Spice's mistreatment of her, because that's would make no sense to do. I'm just bringing up the additional point that I notice a lack of consistency in the way she's framing this due to kind of wanting to be someone's friend and business partner at the same time, which again, you're seeing how that does not work. So then Cleo goes on to share the message that she sent to Ice Spice, but for some reason she continues speaking while also covering more than half of the screen. And I'm not gonna lie, I am definitely not reading all that. Thanks for bringing me on tour. It was an interesting experience. I will say overall, you could have been a better host. To which Ice Spice says, nah, you're mad ungrateful. You need to communicate with your managers more because they said they didn't have a problem getting your room. My fault for inviting you. And then Cleo's like, you think you're a fairy godmother, bro. Calm down. And then Ice is like, since I'm so terrible to you, stop being my friend. I don't care. We're really getting into middle school here. And then Ice Spice is implying that Cleo is just drumming up drama for her upcoming single. And then it gets ridiculous. You disrespected me first by bringing up my boyfriend. Oh yeah? Enjoy your little story time. Oh yeah? Enjoy being friendless. Enjoy being careerless. Okay, that's kind of cold. The fact that Ice Spice did immediately jump to, oh, you're not grateful and enjoy not having a career does really put the way Cleo framed this in the very beginning into context. And from reading those messages, it does sound like Ice Spice expected Cleo to just put up with anything because Ice was giving her an opportunity. And again, as I said, not right.
Ask me how far I think you're gonna get. With that personality, you don't have one. With the way you act, with the way you move, you are a soulless individual. You are really demonic. You have a very demonic vibe to you, especially with the way I was seeing you every day, the way you mope around, and you just, if your makeup artist is not bringing that wing and making it pick up your eye, you are dead.
Okay, again, we're back to this is a little much. This is gonna sound like an excuse, but I feel like there is a possibility that instead of being demonic, someone who is going on this massive tour and is performing on all of these dates may be tired. That may kind of explain the general vibe that's just kind of like, you know? Obviously, that doesn't excuse any of the behavior. I just find this implication of like soullessness and demon energy to be a bit out there, but that's the conclusion of the saga, all 52 minutes, which I have tried to cut down into something a little bit more streamlined. So of all the people who had many opinions on this entire series, Ice Spice decided to go to Twitter Spaces and share hers. Her response was around 5 minutes as opposed to 50, which I am very grateful for. And here's what Miss Spice had to say on the matter.
The scary part of fame, honestly, is the moment that somebody feels like they can no longer use your platform, or like they're not getting exactly what they want out of a situation the way that they want it. You know what I mean? It's like, that's when they decide to crash out every single time.
Immediately chalking this up to, I'm just famous and that's why people are mad at me. Nothing in Cleo's video sounded like she was upset about, I guess, not being able to use Ice Spice's platform. I was more so just picking up confusion over the way she was treated once she was given that platform.
I genuinely was trying to help her, like mad last minute. We added another tour bus. So I'm like, now we have extra room. We have extra bunks. So I'm like, oh, let me see see if Cleo wants to come.
So this doesn't really excuse the last minute treatment. I guess it does explain it, though I'm not sure how that helps. If anything, all she's done here is confirm that Cleo was being accurate about how last minute literally everything was. Ice Spice is basically admitting that she was an afterthought. And even if I guess there were nice intentions behind that afterthought, surely a friend would deserve a bit more than that.
That's what the I get for trying to be a good person. It's whatever, bro. Honestly, like, you know, that's not gonna stop me from still trying to be a good person. Like, I'm gonna always help the next person out. Like, and that's really my fault, for real.
Okay, Ice Spice. All right, we're all gonna see how good of a person she demonstrates herself to be during this very short little live stream.
Just to leave out so many details is crazy. Like, how you not gonna tell the people we was on them rides at the theme park screaming our vocal cords out? We was having fun. So for you to try to sit here and complain about a chicken salad,
I think this is once again the pattern of like, hey, we did nice things, so why are you complaining about something that you perceived as not nice? I feel like people who do this never stop to think about the fact that they're doing this, or maybe they do know and they just don't care because it's the only way they know how to get things that they want. Regardless, based off of Cleo's TikToks alone, I guess that wouldn't be enough for me to say Ice Spice seems kind of manipulative in the way she uses the things she's done for other people, but no, again, she's just confirming it. She is literally doing that right here.
and you go send me an essay with an intro, bodies, and a conclusion, like, and you want me to try to like analyze this and figure out how I'm wrong when all I did was share my stage with you.
That's kind of the problem. Is that literally all you did was share the stage with her. Ice Spice did not seem to accommodate Cleo in any other way because it sounds like her team is just disastrously unprepared to add one additional person.
When I ain't even have to do that, you got less than 10,000 listeners and I'm sharing my stage with you and you feeling so entitled, like you thinking that my peoples that work for me is supposed to work for you too.
Yeah, kinda. I don't see how that's weird. Ice Spice has not contradicted Cleo's statement that I said everything would be covered. And with the way she framed it as a trip between friends, I truly don't see how it's a strange expectation or entitlement, I suppose, to expect to be accommodated. I think that Cleo's general indignation over having to carry her own bags definitely kind of rings as a bit entitled, but she was in this situation where people have their bags carried. So this is a really strange way of reacting, in my opinion.
Like, that's so crazy to me. Like, how I'm in the shower, you gon' barge in trying to press me about some bags that you gotta carry some bags.
Okay, that's wild though. If that happens, I mean, I guess you can't very well text somebody if they're in the shower, but surely you could have waited 5 minutes. Again, though, it's just her word versus her word.
All I could do is sigh about it, because it's just like, what can you do, bro? It's like, damn.
I will say the general tone of this live stream is really annoying. I'm just so famous, you know, and like, oh, this just happens every time. And it's just, all I can do is sigh, even though I'm such a good person. She really should have ended it right about there, but instead it got very, very weird very quickly.
But the whole thing that's blowing me right now is like talking about some dark energy, trying to compare a tour bus to a slave ship. Like, what are you talking about right now? What?
Okay, no, actually, she does have a point there. All of that was reading as strange to me.
You really gonna be friends with somebody for 2 years, but the whole time you feel like they soulless and dark? Like, you sound dumb as hell. If anything, we both need saving.
That's definitely not what Cleo said. She was expressing surprise at finding out that Ice Spice was like this, not the knowledge that Ice was always like this and she was just putting up with it for no reason. Though the phrase, if anything, we both need saving is pretty funny, I won't lie. But no, this is the part where it gets so weird.
You not gonna tell the people how we was at an Italian restaurant and you ate so much food, you vacuum, that the server was like, where did the food go? Like, stop it right now.
What? So it's like, it's crazy because that really, as far as I'm concerned, does prove Cleo's interpretation of events, which is that Ice Spice can't wait to say things like this. I think that's something Cleo said several times. Oh, she just couldn't wait to start talking down to me. It's like you just talked for 3.5 minutes, I guess, about mildly reasonable responses to this, but then you had to go in and criticize the way she eats and call her a vacuum. This is nasty energy. This is dark-sided and just so weird. What did that add. You know, that's not additional context to the story. That's just being mean.
Anyways, yeah, I'm about to actually go to sleep for real this time.
Maybe you should have gone to bed first and then woken up and tried this, because how could you think that was going to go over well? It's almost like she doesn't care if it's going to go over well, just as long as it hurts Cleo's feelings in some way. Ice Spice then posted on Twitter, what should I do for dinner? Steakhouse or chicken salad? And it's like, this is not funny. The person who posted it said, lol, this kind of just validates everything that was said about her. And I have to agree. Maybe not everything. Maybe not all of it. You know, this is not enough for me to say Ice Spice is a demon, but she's mean, right? That's mean. That's mean to do that. The whole thing was mean from the beginning. That's sort of Cleo's point that she was trying to make to the world. I didn't know what to believe after watching it, but after seeing the way Ice Spice responded, yeah, I think it totally recontextualizes everything in the story, and I completely believe what Cleo said. Mean girl vibes, fake friend, all of the above. Cleo responded by saying, imagine being called big by someone that was just big. I'm going to bed, bro. Ozempic got y'all gassed and fatphobic now? Bad. And Ozempic or not, Ice Spice has shown on her social media that she's very proud, I guess, of her recent weight loss. We beaten them allegations, bae. In other words, she's saying, you know, it wasn't Ozempic. And I don't think the method really matters at all. I just think that Cleo has a point here. Trying to use the way somebody eats as a dig is wild, especially coming from someone who was dealing with people on the internet criticizing her body. None of which should be happening in the first place. Like, it doesn't matter how much anybody other than you weighs. But no, Ice Spice is just wild for that. Like, what? What do you mean, Ice? Like, yeah, this kind of took the internet by storm. People are split. Ice Spice's manager wades into Cleotrapa beef. Azalea Banks invites Cleotrapa to open for her. Shades Ice Spice. I mean, Azalea Banks kind of has beef with everyone. I don't think that's much of a headline. 504 defends Ice Spice amid Cleotrapa feud, etc. And that's to say nothing of the thousands and thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of comments about this. But I guess if I had to give my comment, it would be, I think Ice Spice was wrong. Point blank period. If Ice Spice did even half of the things that Cleo said, that would be wrong. And Ice Spice basically confirmed them all indirectly while also adding plenty of wrong things on her own. But I guess this situation is so low stakes compared to my actual life that if somebody had a different take or read on it, I'm not really viewing this as you're a bad person, I suppose. That's just my take on the thing that I really didn't need to know, but I just feel like it's nice to focus on things that you don't need to know sometimes. All of the things you need to know are so serious. I completely understand why people gravitate towards things like this every now and then. And at the same time, even though the scenario itself literally has nothing to do with us and really didn't need to be public, it still does touch on issues that are serious, like people manipulating you by doing favors, retaliating against you when you try to speak up about how you feel, and really just highlighting a specific kind of person that you have to watch out for. Cleo's assertion is that Ice Spice is that specific kind of person, and honestly, from her reactions, seems like she's right. But that's my take on the situation. Dave's take on the situation is that he would have carried Cleo's bags, but he doesn't have arms. And I'm of course excited to hear your take. I mean, this is the part of the video where a layman would ask you to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment, but I will ask you to enroll, evaluate the video, and submit your feedback. Because I am of course running a 100% completely, totally, all the way, maybe slightly, somewhat, not really, unaccredited university. Kind of. Just ask anybody in the student body and they'll confirm it for you. We're totally legit. And as for me, whether you'll see me in 24 hours or 24 months is honestly anyone's guess. But until then, thanks for watching. Your homework for today is to do something nice for someone without expecting anything back.